or maybe this is the Vatican of cinema tonight. I'm Rajendra Roy. I'm certainly not the Pope. Chief curator of film here at MoMA. Pleasure to welcome you back to Contenders 2024 and this evening's very special screening of Conclave. I want to thank our friends at Focus Features for bringing this to us, and along with it, an incredible lineup on stage this evening, from the film's director, Edward Berger, to the cinematographer, the costume designer, lead actor Ray Fiennes, John Lithgow, and my heart trembling for Isabella Rossellini. I want to thank our friends at Chanel, of course, for their support year-round. I want to thank all of you for your dedication to cinema, for keeping your things silent and off during the screening, and for joining us for the Q&A afterwards. Till then, Conclaves.
Fontaine. Costume designer, Lisy Christl. John Lithgow. Isabella Rossellini. Ray Fiennes. Seems like the Holy Ghost wanted to pause before we write out. So Edward, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the gloriously irreverent spirit of your film, I thought we would start with your bishops and cardinals before we got to the Pope himself, if that's okay. We'll flip it around. But I'm going to take a point of privilege and start with our eternally superior mother, Isabella. So, Isabella, I was thinking, in a way, for me, this is the first time anyone has typecast you as the woman who knows everything.
You're right about that.
You know, it's such a compelling performance. And Sister Agnes, she just feels so lived in. And I'm wondering how you and Edward got to find Sister Agnes.
We talked a little bit about it, but I think we agreed so fast that there wasn't much discussion. So I went to nun school. I'm from Rome. I grew up in Rome. I went to nun school, so I knew of this authority that they have. They've chosen the life they want to do. They're rebels. One of the nuns that I've had, I asked her, how did her family reacted when she decided to be a nun? And they said, oh, they cried and they cried, my father and mother, because they wanted to be grandparents, and if you're a Catholic nun, of course you can't marry. And they said, well, why don't you go to church every day, but just become a mother? But she said, it's a calling. I couldn't help myself. It was bigger than me. And there was this commitment that was so powerful. And that's the one that I was familiar with and I tried to play.
Incredible. This is a film that's both intimate and grand, sometimes almost, cut to cut. And so, Stephane and Lisy, I was wondering if you both could talk a little bit about the challenge running your departments, right? Running the camera where you both have to be incredibly close with these characters on Rafe, like intimately in so many cases, and then this huge expanse. And then Lisy, to you for creating costumes that could could stand up to the both scrutiny of the intimacy of the picture, but also fill out the room. But Stephane, maybe you could start with that.
Yeah, so actually, I think the first time Edward spoke to me about the movie, he described something to me which was both epic and intimate, which felt quite compelling, obviously. But when you read the script, you suddenly realize that you've got tons of scenes where you've got basically people either voting, and you've got like 5 or 6 ballots, and it becomes feel quite repetitive. And on the other hand, you've got also lots of scenes where you have basically talking people sitting or standing and not moving around too much. So those were the 2 challenges we had. So in order not to find something still compelling and looking good on the screen, we shot this basically the whole movie. Even went more into detailed storyboards for all the ballad scenes. And so basically we had a plan, and on the day when these wonderful actors were on the set and had different ideas, we were quite easily, we could do something totally different.
And Lisy, there's an incredible article in the New York Times about your costume design, so I learned a lot through reading that, but the attention to detail that you brought out of necessity because of that intimacy, but also just the way that the clergy's vestments fill out the screen is remarkable. Talk about pulling that all together.
I think, the whole journey started when Edward and me went the first time to Rome 1 year before we actually started to prepare this movie, and we decided very quickly we don't like the color and we don't like the fabric. This meant basically we made everything. I mean, really everything beside of the shoes. And so we had to convince our producers to go on this journey with us. And Edward basically convinced our producers, and then we had 10 weeks time to fulfill what we had to fulfill. And the same went with the whole jewelry. My Italian costume supervisor showed me a beautiful goldsmith in Florence, and I thought maybe we can afford for Rafe and Stanley and you and Sergio. But then I saw these pieces and I saw what we could find in the local shops in Rome, and the decision was very quickly made. We have to do everything. And so we did it, and I had many sleepless nights because, we had one workshop who made all the costumes for all of you, but then we had many other people, and these costumes arrived the 15th of December in 2022. We started the fittings the 16th December, and we finished the fittings the 23rd of December, and then we started the shoot. Was it the 3rd? Yeah. So it was an incredible journey, a wonderful journey, and in between I had not much time, even to think about how it is. The moment I could reflect was when I had fittings with you. This was a quiet moment, because as soon as I was back in Rome, there were 15 wonderful Italian colleagues. They talked all at the same time, and they sweat all the time, and I don't know how many coffee I had with them and how many cigarettes I had to smoke. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go through this, we will make it. It was really a race, a wonderful race, and I'm very happy we fought the fight.
Based on your timeline, it does sound like this film involved a Christmas miracle, which is somehow appropriate. John, getting to Tremblay. He's a bit of a villain, perhaps, but as you learn more about him, thanks to Sister Agnes, you realize not perhaps more than any of the other characters, in fact, because they're all somewhat complicit in his shenanigans. Talk to us about finding that balance. I mean, you've played complex characters many times in the past, but here was someone who was being set up in a way, and then you brought some humanity to him.
Well, I think all of us felt we should reveal as little of Tremblay's suspect side as possible. It just sort of seep out in the course of the first hour of the film. Tremblay, he seems to me the least interesting of the cardinals, the most workmanlike, and that came in handy because in a way he was the least special, the least suspect. He was very businesslike. He was the one who knew all about the Pope's medical condition. He was the one who had careful timelines of everything. He was kind of the bureaucrat. He was kind of the business manager of the College of Cardinals. I always saw him as the line producer. And therefore, someone you simply don't notice that much. Nobody liked him particularly. They might have been a little suspicious of him, but not deeply suspicious. And then, just bit by bit, you get a sense of how ambition has overtaken him. You know, he's a holy man, like all the cardinals. They entered the priesthood because of faith. So what was fascinating about him, what was really fascinating about all the characters, all the cardinals, was what are the two sides of their nature? Their deep faith and their pragmatism, or their political views in the world of the college's politics, and their ambition, and in fact their greed. It's to me, you know, I'm always on the side of the characters I play. You know, he's needy. First, he needs, he wants, and he tries to disguise all that, and yet it comes out. The most interesting thing I found about his storyline was that he undergoes the worst humiliation of his life in front of all of his colleagues. He is revealed, and he tries to defend himself because he's not, in my mind, he's not entirely guilty, but he's plenty guilty. Guilty enough to be completely ruled out as the Pope, and all his hopes and dreams of life are in rubble. So you would think he would just walk out and disappear. He can't. He's imprisoned. He's sequestered in a conclave. He has to stick around. He even has to continue voting. And I thought that is the source of some redemptive sympathy for him. I'm in the redemption business. People are always hiring me for completely unredeemed people.
Anyway, we'll have a discussion about the dancing movie, the clip that was recently on TV. There's something redemptive happening.
I'm gay.
Great. Thomas Lawrence seems to at least aspire to be the humble, generous leader that we all I at least miss deeply, and we barely seem to recognize in the world these days. And I was wondering, I mean, in building this out, obviously you had this tremendous script and Edward's guidance, but were there any non-fictional humans you could draw inspiration from
Yeah.
this guy?
Well, the first non-fictional person to come into my head as a sort of lodestar or reference was my great uncle, Sebastian Moore, who was a Benedictine monk and quite a well-known radical theologian, wonderful man, and he couldn't bear the Vatican. And I thought he would be laughing and smiling with delight in the knowledge that I was going to put on the red rose. But I also think a lot of, although he didn't like the patriarchal, hierarchical stuff, but he, in fact, although the shot didn't make the film, early on there's Lawrence's room in the city of Rome before it started with him waking up and walking. You see him walking, but there is a scene where he's waking up and he senses something's happened. And it was Lawrence's bedroom in the city of Rome. And I asked Edward if I could have my great uncle Sebastian's books by the bed. That was meaningful to me. But my mother and you cut it out. I know that's the way it goes often. But just quickly to say, my mother was a committed Catholic. I was brought up a Catholic as me and my siblings. I rebelled when I was about 13, but I've never lost an interest in what it is to have faith. And so discussions about God and faith were kind of present. And it interests me, and I don't know if I'm a Christian, but Christ is sure as hell very interesting guy. He has a lot to say that keeps provoking us, and I'm interested in that provocation. I don't know about coming back from the dead, I don't know about walking on water, but I do know a guy walked around Palestine and he had an effect on people, and that's kind of interesting. And it still is today. And so the effect of that was with me, and I talked to some priests I met in Rome and had some discussions, and so all that stuff helped me just to talk to real guys who are thinking, praying, believing, and committed to this way of life.
Incredible. I want to come back to you with, in a sense, leading the conclave of this incredible ensemble, right? But I will pass it to you. Edward, so when I first saw your film, it was back in September, and the world has changed so dramatically, or maybe it hasn't. My awareness of the world we live in, perhaps, is what has changed for many of us. And I was so determined to show this film before the US elections, right? We had actually invited it to open the series in early November, but then the release date, thrilled to show it now, of course, but wow, has the context changed for me, and wow, has my understanding of what your film is or can be has changed. Has it changed for you as well?
Well, I think it goes with the times, you know. Our perception of movies changes, and we try to make this movie timely, you know. I mean, the book was written 8 years ago, but discussions between populism and progressive or liberal fraction of the church is, you know, it's universal. It's everywhere, you know. It's in Europe, in America, and that divide is in, you know, we can find it everywhere. So we just kept updating the script to these discussions to make it, you know, we don't want to make a movie in a bubble. You want it to resonate with us, and while we watch it, we want to recognize our own life in it, and especially in America, lines like, you know, you want us to vote for the least worst option or something really resonated, you know, like at least there was tremendous laughter when we premiered it here a few weeks ago. And, but, you know, the strange thing is, we showed this movie in Germany, the premiere, the government topples, the same night. And actually, during the screening, people started checking their phones, you know. And yesterday it opened in France, and the government. So it's still sort of, I don't know.
Well, look, I mean, for me, the idea of an intersex person as the hero of the film, when now in this country, clearly we can see what demonizing trans and intersex people has in part led to, it just takes on a implication. Of course. You know, how has the response to that reveal? I mean, you know, it's, of course, a twist is a very simplistic way to describe it. It's actually a profound, well, the reason I wanted to show it was your film before the election, for me, offered a way forward, right? I thought the intelligent discussions that were happening in the film, even the intrigue, led to a result that at least inspired me. Now it's kind of like, well, this is our last hope. We have to still draw inspiration from this.
Yeah, you know, it's a movie. We wanted to make a movie of hope, hope for change. And change will come, you know, we just need to be patient. We can't give up, and it's a bit delayed, you know, but it'll come. And, you know, otherwise what do we live for? You know, so we just have to cling on to this. And this movie, you know, takes place in the oldest patriarchy in the world. Isabella is literally the only woman in the film. And she's supposed to be silent, which she doesn't adhere to, because it's her. And by the end, Rafe has, you know, he opens the shutters, and the light comes in, and the air comes in, the day comes back in, life comes back in, and you know, life has changed, and there's a crack of hope. There's a crack in the foundation of this patriarchy, which, you know, all femininity has put into it, and we see it, you know, and through that cracks the light, and it's the light of hope for change, you know, and that change is possible. In the end, we want to make a movie where we say, you know, change is possible. We just have to accept it and nurture it.
On a slightly lighter and perhaps completely irrelevant and incorrect note, I read recently how deeply or meticulously you storyboarded this film, right? That everything was prepared, and Stephane, you can say whether that was useful or not, or to the actors if you saw that. I can tell this closet joke since my husband is German, but it felt very German to me. And it felt like there was a running German joke through that, because there was truly like an antagonistic cardinal. He was named the German, right? Tedesco was the German. I didn't read the book. Was that his name always in the book?
That's in the book. I almost assume it's a reference to a more conservative ex-cardinal, Pope Benedict, you know, who was German, the previous pope. So I assume it's kind of a play on that. I never asked Robert Harris, but anyway, we kept that name. And yeah, I mean, I guess I can't, you know, I'm worse, I'm Swiss German, you know, so it's like close. So I can't deny that. And on top of it, my father and all my brothers were engineers. Yeah, so I have that in me somehow. And I use it as a crutch because I want to be able to imagine the film ahead. We didn't storyboard the whole thing, just the voting sequences, because I was worried that they would be repetitive. We talked about all the shots, but the storyboards were really the voting scenes, because they needed to be meticulous, and they needed to be precise, and they needed to have a progression. And when you don't plan these things, inevitably you're going to repeat yourself with 6 of these scenes, and they're going to become repetitive, and they're not going to reveal anything new. And so I kind of needed this as a crutch to say, okay, we shot this, and now we can cross that off, and sometimes it just helps you keep going, but also it helps you to keep open. To me, I've really noticed that you can forget the storyboards after you did them. The main thing is that you have a plan. And then I don't feel like an idiot when these people walk on set and say, what do we do? You know, and when you have so many, at least to offer up an idea, or to say like, I don't know, why don't we explore together? And then you can just have that in your back of your head, and it's helpful. It makes you less nervous on the day.
No, I'm a big fan of the storyboards, and obviously we got to know each other when Edward was bringing out his last film, which won 4 Oscars.
That was storyboarded a lot too.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I wanted to finish up, and again, thank you all for being with us and taking time. You've been talking about this film for many months now, to great success. It's a huge hit. I mean, I have to say, tonight we weren't sure if we were going to get everyone in. There's still a great hunger for this picture, but working with such an experienced and renowned conclave of talent would seem to be daunting, and maybe you could just lead this off. I mean, you're the lead, you're the one who has to make sure that it all comes together. How much did you and Edward, and then you and your colleagues work together to make sure that this stayed true and stayed on the rails and true to his vision?
I think it was very, the sense of connection and collaboration, sort of collegiate sense of ensemble was instantly there. It was instantly there, It's, yes, you can say I'm a central figure, but it's an ensemble piece. It really is, and that the energy of it being ensemble was very apparent when we had the read-through of the screenplay. You could just feel it in the room, the delight when you read a play in the theatre, the delight of the collective hearing of the play. And that was a wonderful feeling, that this is read like a great play. And I think Edward is has a wonderful ability to allow actors to grow in scenes. And that's a kind of amazing thing when you just feel you've been given the space. And if I have the space with John and with Isabella, there's echoes and connections and vibes that are happening. And it's great when directors allow it to happen. And with Stephane just finding angles, and we own the connection. And of course there are directors who want to come in and cut and shape, and that's valid too. But I think Edward is empowering of our ability to emerge and grow in the scenes with each other.
Isabella, John, do you concur? Was the ensemble together, or were there behind-the-scenes shenanigans against your dean?
I don't remember a lot of shenanigans. I think it's very important to say that it is a superb ensemble, and we are all supporting an incredible performance by Rafe. He was the acting partner of about 30 fantastic actors. Edward had two brilliant collaborators, Nina Golden and Martin Ware, our casting directors. The College of Cardinals is an extremely diverse and international group. They just found extraordinary actors from about 30 different countries. I feel that I'm almost an envoy from this wonderful group of supporting players. And I love to rattle off their names because you've just seen them, and all of them, each one of us has had at least one marvelous scene with Rafe. And in every case, he's just been the most superb acting partner. But just in their honor, there's Jacek Koman, who played Wozniak, Lucian Msamati, superb as Ayademi, Sergio Castellito, obviously, but Mirab Ninidzi from Georgia, Brian O'Byrne from Ireland. It went on and on and on. Thomas Leubel from Germany. Most of these theater actors extremely celebrated in their countries, whom I had occasionally I would say, oh my God, Mirab, I saw you in The Courier. You were co-starring with Benedict Cumberbatch. That was you, right? He played Sabadin, a tiny little role, but very important. You will remember he was the most urgent liberal activist who kept trying to get Stanley to stand up and fight. All of those, nobody dropped the ball. Not one actor was not absolutely top rate, in spite of the fact that they had very small roles. Isabella, who has about 1/10 the lines of the smallest role in the play, her performance is one of the most powerful just because of her silence. And Edward just managed all this just brilliantly.
Isabella, the first and last word to you. Any insights on working with this incredible group of men?
Oh, me,
mostly.
me.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
The
the
women
women.
silence.
Yeah.
But I thought that it was important for the role of the nun not to speak so much, because that's the structure of the Catholic Church, which is patriarchal. So it was interesting to have one person, it was a different sex, not talking. It all the men talking and arguing. But also be very present, so that I'm a witness of it all, so that when I speak the truth, because I paid attention to all of it. So I loved, and I don't think that in order to act, you have to have lines. That's the first time I heard it. 1,000 people say you don't have lines. No. So it's not, your acting is not the line, it's the presence that you have, and the character, the presence that you give your character.
What an incredible presence you did here. I wish we had more time, all the time in the world, but thank you so much, all of you.